Yeah. And is that well supported?
Oh, it is, absolutely. And there's a kind of, you'd find it very hard to find local Clonakilty people on it even, you know.
Interesting.
Mm.
Okay, well, I guess I'd better get underway. Seeing as it's Help Estate, we've got a number of people with video off, but that's fine, and there'll be other people trickling in now over the next while. I think everyone who is here, and no, perhaps not, the majority of the people here have been here before, but for those who haven't been here, I will explain how the evening moves ahead. It is a bilingual evening this evening. So we'll be having our guest poets reading in both Irish and in English. So good evening to everyone online as well. It's to our 662nd Ovale. Probably our penultimate, I believe, virtual event before we get back into the Long Valley in October. We still have one more. We have one last virtual event this coming Friday night for Culture Night, but a little more on that later. So, Ichawa agus fáilte gachéine go dtí ar nícha verlichte dátheangach bio chahar corcí anocht ó bhéil iver séchéad seasca a dó. So, cai mé rabhuichas mór le Forest na Gaelga as riachta huirt on a caid. I have to thank Forest na Gaelga for sponsoring our bilingual nights. So thanks to them. For those who haven't been here before, the evening runs with 3 parts at the moment. Shortly, we'll begin the 5-word challenge, where you'll have a chance to write a poem based on 5 words, and also the chance to win a couple of books. We've got our Twin Skies anthology, which is this one, recently published with poets from Cork and Coventry, as well as our annual 5 words anthology up for grabs. After that, we will have some announcements, and I'll introduce you to our guest poets for the evening. And then, as usual, we'll have our open mic session. So to kick off the 5-word challenge, how does that work? You, the audience, offer up the participating audience, that is, here in Zoom, offer up 5 words, and then we'll take about 15 minutes, which you have then to incorporate those words into a small bit of creative writing, whether that be a poem or a note that you're going to pin on the fridge for someone. It's completely up to you. And then we'll open up after 15 minutes for those who'd like to read their contributions, and the voting that gets done after that will determine who the winner is, who wins the couple of books, and we'll post those off to you tomorrow. So hopefully that explains it. Hopefully that's clear enough. Could we have 5 words from the audience, please? Into the chat box, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, we've got skill. S-K-I-L-L, skill. We have float. We have glow. We have rugged. And thanks to Cahill, we have obstreperous.
What is that?
I know most of us do. Would you mind now offering some kind of explanation as to the meaning of that word, Cahill?
Sure. Obstreperous, the actual definition, which I just had to double check, is noisy and difficult to control.
Noisy.
This boy is cocky and obstreperous.
Noisy and difficult to control. Okay, that's a great explanation. Thank you for that. So okay, so we'll take 15 minutes. We'll see how you get on with those 5 words. I'll also post them in our Facebook event shortly for anyone who'd like to, give it a go outside of the Zoom session. All right, so best of luck, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay, we'll add just a few little minutes on because we had a couple of latecomers. So say 3 more minutes. Okay, fáilte ras gachéine inis is féidir len éisteach leis na dáanta dúsláán go gacal. Welcome back, everyone. We're now going to start listening to the poems written for the 5-word challenge. So for those of you who would like to take part and feel like you have something you'd like to share, please pop your name into the chat box, 5 words and your name, and we'll call you up to read your poem. Don't forget there are 2 books on the line, the Twin Skies Anthology and the 5 words, the latest 5 words anthology, plus a drink from your fridge. Of course, in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or in a month from now, a few months' time from now, we'll be able to offer you a pint from the bar for those of you who are actually with us physically. So we're looking very forward to that. Okay, we have 2 up so far. We have 3 up so far on the list. Shall we get things started? Richard, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Hello, Paul. Mine's since this is the dual language one, I did mine in the 2 languages, if that's okay. So would you like any translations first, or would I just go for it?
Up to you how you do it. Completely
okay. Up to you. I can do the translation at the end, I suppose.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
It goes, I could not ignore the glore. It's dinna kin to younga ag boga har clark calca. Limlienta, I honed the skill of silencing my obstreperous self, and I would have gone on good Joe, blind to the power of its glow. But now I know Ní féidir leis cadú dit féid cailta as rugged hailta without any wings in hope that you'll float. And the rough translation is, I couldn't ignore the noise. It's dim, akin to nails on a chalkboard. With years, I honed the skill of silencing my obsessive self and would have gone on forever blind to the power of its glow. But now I know you can't throw yourself lost off rugged cliffs without wings and hope that you'll float.
All right, super. Thank you, Richard. Well done. Great to have a start off with a bilingual piece. Okay, so next up we have Brendan.
Yeah, I'm going to have to dip out here. I'm sure I was bilingual up to about the age of 8, but many decades have passed in London, so this is in English, I'm afraid. It's called Catwoman and the Cats. Her mother visited often, almost daily, usually in the well-decked-out BMW, sometimes on foot. A skilled operator, hair neat, outfits fitting together. Catwoman herself rarely used the car. She cycled in sports clothes to work, then toured the grounds, escorting her long-haired, obstreperous Persians in a puffer coat, her hair in a towel. There'd been a bloke who used to come and glow, but he'd gone at some point. Now it was just Catwoman and the Cats, and her mother in classy slacks, with Bikini Woman sometimes filling out the scene. The day the female floated silkily into the back of my car, I asked its name, while Catwoman achieved its extrication. Luna, she said. Short for lunatic, I offered. Cue pregnant pause. There are others here. OCD, the madwoman in the attic, Jawad, known by his car reg, and the rugged Pyrrhus lifting weights in his studio. But we are increasingly defined, marked out by Catwoman and her all-encircling cats.
Magic. Thank you, Brendan.
Pleasure.
And well done. And next up, we have Pamela. You ready, Pam?
Yeah, this is the fastest I've ever written anything, so let's see how it sounds. Okay, it's called Taken. Fireflies float in mason jar, glow our guilty stolen light. Obstreperous, childlike, rugged human hands skillfully catch breath not ours. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Pam. Thank you. And next up, we have Cahill. You ready, Cahill?
Hey there, guys. That was good timing. If you'd been 20 seconds earlier, you would have heard my flatmate struggling with the smoke alarm. So this one is from the heart. That's what it's called. The skill is to float on the surface until the depth arises, like a worm on a hook, like an ancient, a rishi on a pillow, Brigitte Bardot in a cocktail glass, a drunkard in a think tank, a thinker in a drunk tank, a pharaoh in a honey trance. The skill is to float on the surface until the depths arise. The mind is rugged, obstreperous. She must remember how to glow. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Cahill. Okay, next we have Cedric.
Can you hear me all right? Great. She was a lone child, despite her parents' best wishes and attempts to make this family flourish. So she received all the love that her fellow men could dish, in spite of the rugged environment. Delicate at birth, soft like a flower with a unique glow, she slowly turned obstreperous, like a rose loses its petal, and only thorns grow. Boisterous and fearless, gathering fame, her skill would thread into a web that would float beyond the jungle, carrying the word of a name, sticking wherever it reached. The story, the works, and the title of the invincible scarlet spider.
Thank you, Cedric. Well done. Next up, we have Sue Blue.
Thanks very much. I don't have a title for it. With the skill of angels, we float across this rugged terrain of time without even hurting the soles of our feet. With the skill of the warrior, we glow with obstreperous defiance, ready in the face of the current winds and whirling currents. With the skill of woman, we hold the space of softness for the angels to land and the warrior to recharge in the softest clouds. With the skill of the gods, we will transcend all that is weak and indecisive until the glow of love will power everyone's wings. Thanks very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Sue. And next on the list, and the last on the list so far, unless there are any final contributors, we have Jim Quickhart. Jim?
Okay, thank you. So I don't really have a title, but I was going to, no, I won't even say what I was going to use. I'll just get into the poem. A nun in a lime green habit waves hot pink rosary beads, mercilessly swinging the neon Jesus, clutching to the crucifix, illuminating the midnight chapel, her Miami green glow. She floats through the rugged darkness of the empty pews. The nun has decided to say mass to herself in lockdown, preaching with the skill of 1,000 priests combined. Quietly, she breaks bread and offers wine until a blue light shines through. It's the Gardaí and a priest yelling, "Someone arrest that obstreperous nun."
Brilliant. Thank you, Jim. And now we have Mags Creedon. Hey, Mags.
Paul, how are you? This is kind of a sad bit of creative writing, but sure. What can you do with 5 words? They take you on their own journey. Rugged crag for a profile. 2 eyes glowing with Pesbach. He had the skill with lofting, jumping with guarding. Don't mad for Gante. Clung to the bar counter on the creamery day. Was it the Dole day or was it the Mart day? She'd sit and wait for him in the car, heavy with childy whimper, carrying the daily graph for him. Others scrambled over her. Beside her, another meow. My mother would rap back to give. My mother would rap back to give her. By the low whitewashed wall, another meow. An ousel, a donkey with laden shoes, long curled up tusks for hooves. There he'd waited the heat of the day, static, loading on misshapen feet, shifting the weight around them, picking the flies from the bridle, his snout attached to a Hessian nosebag with the lavings of stale oat, until gone, shaken of the oat bag. I'd see him and creep up to him, bring him fresh nuts I'd keep for the birds, and stroke his nose and talk nice to his tired, enduring eyes. She'd waited out, steady eyes that once flowed and floated back. She remembered the night when he carried her home on his bike, his bright blue eyes, a greenkish dig. Her mother warned her he was a terror. He was a bunkum perkin from the wrong side of the parish, the makings of a right terror. Would I listen to him? He was skilled in the cute moves and the coke theorem. Go around the lakes with the pattern, and that was the end of them. I'd sneak up beside him and pull on his coat, saying, "It's hot out." But your man was in full swing, listening to no one. They'd send for the bus when he got obstreperous. He'd motor down the footpath, taking the 2 sides of it. Her eyes glowed at the thought of the evening. Black theatre of silhouettes ready coming across the landing. O Cá Wilt McGraw, Neil Ain, Neil Owen and Ishach Hamadan, O Man Faru, Lawn the Porter, I keek, this is screacht. Read my writing notes, usual. I keek, this is screacht, Igon Kunter, Tocht and Lay. It's an panic farag feinach, Kuhn. Can ein dochus, ach an post and new, look for. Other raw, mach shib do. So, it's a lot of writing. But, you will.
Yeah, thanks, Max. That is a lot for only 15 minutes. Well
There.
there. So, Kawajas Gachainia, well done, everyone. Initius Godam Navoti Varav. I have to count up the votes now. So, if you have the winner in mind, inside the Zoom session, you type in the chat box winner and their name, and I'll add up those. And for anyone on Facebook who'd like to add your vote, we'll count up those too. You just need to pop them straight into the chat, the word winner and the poet's name, and we'll add those up. So I just need a few minutes to do that, and then we will listen from the winner once again. All right, let's take a look here. Okay. Another one. Anyone else like to add their votes? Anyone else like to add their votes?
Okay, yeah, let's see. Maybe.
And I'm just waiting for the Facebook votes to come in, if there are any. Let's take a look. We have a few more participants joining us. And just, I did see a message from someone on Facebook there, so asking if they could read their poem. Now, there's a difficulty with that, and you need to be in the Zoom session to be able to contribute your poem. So just ahead of the next event, you might just contact us for the Zoom link. We have to do that prior to the event, and we're happy to invite you to take part. But unfortunately, there is no way of actually saying your poem via Facebook. You have to actually be in the Zoom session. All right. Okay. All right. I think we have, do we? Let's take a look here. Yes, we do. We have a winner. And that winner is Cahill Holden. Congrats, Cahill. You're this evening's 5-word challenge champion.
Thanks, guys.
You know the score. We'd love to hear your poem again.
Sure. To the heart. The skill is to float on the surface until the depth arises. Like a worm on a hook, like an ancient, a rishi on a pillow, Brigitte Bardot in a cocktail glass, a drunkard in a think tank, a thinker in a drunk tank, like a pharaoh in a honey trance. The skill is to float on the surface until the depth arises. The mind is rugged, obstreperous. She must remember how to glow. Thank you. Cheers.
Well done, Cahill. That's a worthy winner. Lovely poem. Thank you very much indeed. Superb. So that is the first part of the evening done. We're coming into the main event now. Tá cúpla fógra le déanamh agam Salagorime are Niana and Apadiv. So I've got to say a few announcements before I introduce our guests to you, as usual. And I will need to copy and paste them both into the chat box and into Facebook. So you'll bear with me while I run through this gamut of technical challenges. So the first is that the 9th 5-word international poetry competition continues. This year's judge is Maurice Reardon. So for submission details, you can visit ovail.ie, and because you're here, you get the words 12 hours earlier, or a little more than that actually, earlier than the general public do. They appear at 12 o'clock every Tuesday on our website. And then you have 7 days to write a poem, and then you get in with a chance to win, €750 first prize, etc., and to read at our anniversary event in April. So the 5 words for the next week, you have 1 week, and it runs all the way until the end of January, are between, key, if, early, and creature. That's between, key, if, early, and creature. I'm just going to pop those into the Facebook as well. Okay. Ovail aims to maintain a safe space for writers and the general public. So while we discourage self-censorship, we do expect participants to be sensitive to refrain from any offensive or discriminatory language, including that relating to race, gender, religion, cultural background, etc., in line with the Arts Council's equality, human rights, and diversity policy, or from any phrasing that may be hurtful towards marginalized minority groups or individuals in any event. The private chat mode is available for all participants to use. So we just ask that you please be respectful when using that, and to report, please, any offenses or online abuse to Ovail, either through the private chat or to info@ovail.ie. Okay, the events, these virtual events are recorded and kept in our archives on Vimeo and our Facebook, as well as YouTube account. So you are always welcome to go through the archives for yourselves and go back and see how great you were on the night. Our guest poets this Friday, the 17th of September, for our Culture Night, which we do once a year. For Core Culture Night, our spoken word artists from Belfast, Elizabeth McGowan and Jenny Lindsay from Scotland. I just want to pop those into the Facebook and Zoom. There we go. And our guest poets next month for our first hybrid event, or blended media event, I suppose, if you like, are Dean Brown and Neil McCarthy. That's on the 11th of October. Unfortunately, we can't open to the public quite then, because we still have a limitation on numbers. So we've had to limit that to personal invitations. But from November, the Long Valley will be open to the public. We have full capacity then once again, so anyone can come in. But from October, our events being blended, one of the guest poets will be live in person in the room. The other will be via Zoom, pretty much like we're doing. So we're blending the in-person experience with this Zoom session that we've been running for the past 18 months. So we've got a bit of a technical hill ahead of us, but I think it seems to be on track. So hopefully, if you can't make it in person in October, November, at least you'll be able to take part via Zoom as usual. Okay, so thanks to everyone who has kindly offered donations. PayPal donations can be made either via the link above our live poetry stage on our website, if that's where you're watching, or via our contact page, which I will just post a link to there shortly. Go. And I think that is it. That is it for our Fogri. So inish Tasha Naam de Priva Kaidanich. It's time for the main part of the evening. I guess Kahime Gwelga or Kliamek Shul. I've got to read out some biographies of Gwelga Inish. So please forgive me if I stumble over any of that. I must say, Kahime Rab Wichas More, the Forest na Gaelga, a taku lesh and a coid sho, agus as achur ar gummas and chudis far dilly chung and a heron a hurtlive, bemid eishiklo nias very shortly. We just want to really thank Forest na Gaelga for sponsoring our bilingual events and for allowing us to bring the very best of Irish language poets to you. Okay, Curime are Nina and Atna Lechlig. I'm going to be introducing our guest poets separately. So first I'll be introducing Colette and afterwards Colm Breathnach. So we're delighted to have both poets with us this evening. I guess Fáilte Mór, Hugo Vale, Colette, agus Colm. Okay, so first of all, Erin Chéadúr, tá Coney an Villa Ahanta Colette I Gontina Galjeva, tá chud filiachta syllabus na manscalana agus cláistí, tá filiacht prose agus bahasneis fáiltethe ecce, idir verla agus Gaelga, tá lawer nua fáiltethe ecce, réamh loidach ó Chuiscéim baile Aclia, Tashi Iman Doctorchte Fuilaher I Galash na Hulskala Galiev. So Colette has 15 publications, which include a volume of short stories, or more, as well as an academic study of the blind poet Anthony Raftery. She has one volume of English poetry, Sundial, which was published by Ireland House Press, and also has two dual language collections of poetry from Ireland, Between Curses, Banya Gare, and In Castlewood, and Goya Duig. Her work is on the syllabus in primary, secondary, and third level colleges, and Colette's collected poetry, bilingual, is titled Banya Gare, Sour Milk, available in hardback and softback, published by Ireland House. Also, Colette is pursuing a PhD in the English department at NUI Galway, has an MA in Modern Irish and an MA in English, and her newly published collection of Irish language poetry and art is entitled Réamh Loidach, Revolutionary. It's published by Cushcame in Dublin. So, Curigi Fáilte, Chriúil Anish, Leverdul, Riv Colette Niké. Please give a warm welcome to Colette Niké.
Míle mágad Paul tá an áthas orm a bheith an seo an ocht uair a measc tásúla go bhfuil gatain an an mé chleistóil I gceart, so everybody can hear me okay in that? Yeah, good anha. Mar dúirt Paul, tá mé cinál ag seola má leabhar nua a nacht. I'm kind of launching the Réamh Loidach a nacht, mar ní rá éon seola ag gceart go dtí seo, mar cur gafrad ar cheall mar gheall ar COVID. Mar is old Dave. Galóráte fin COVID is dat so mé na dánta inis. An chéad don an rud faoin na dánta an seo, the thing about the poems in this collection, it's tá siad buníthe ar daoine Réamh Loidach chas mé lo. Some of them have already been published in different other collections. It's a kind of a collected works, new and previously published works for revolutionaries, a chas mé lo, or daoine bhí Réamh Loidach in a good batha, marial or an changa, maybe language or cultural revolutionaries come out le Réamh Loidach plitteachta. An chéad Réamh Loidach ba mé le bhí ná an tidir atá an dánseo ná buinean agus bhí sé fáilte hana gábhíos carteig. Bannach siar asam nuair a dúirt Deirdre ben níise grá mo chuid leabhar amach ar ísacht eice ón leabharlann áitiúil. Híl mé grá dóchan triblóide eice héin ar deoracht lena clán, gan a bheith bútha faoi filiacht ar bith. Nach rá istí céir de bhí ná lethe rud a hiig si gomach an tafre fri sléip de éon fi chéile dre harca leis. Gan trácht a hennim héin bel lúte laura wash. Len si a kant fri sra nu a filiachta a bhí idir láb eke. Nach rá mórrán eile le déna agus jureocht an Alban. Ves me grab creekneocht an wash ag bant leis is dúirt sin lethe. Mar an scéalta ach iad a ahris. On loan. I was taken aback when Deirdre, wife of Nisha, told me she had my poetry collections on loan from the local library. Had she not enough troubles of her own in exile with her family without being bothered with poetry? She was well aware of what was about to befall. Did she not dream of the slaying of her husband and kin, not to mention seeing her own name inscribed in the book of death? She continued to talk about a series of poems she was composing. There wasn't much else while on the run in Scotland. I felt the inevitability of death in what she said and told her this. Returned home to pen a prayer. Storytelling is an intricate business. Agus ag an buinte seo, I'd like to have a hiatus and read a poem for my Scottish niece and nephew. Bhí mé ag fannacht lo léon de sira cúpla seachtain ó hen. I was staying with them a couple of weeks ago in their farm in Breathnach, Cillian Bray Knock, agus an tanamató an fermatá nó Breafoot Bunacnick. So shut down Breafoot, the Ella agus Lachlan. Sending Titans and their cousins to my Scottish niece, besotted by Hogwarts. She lives in the Highlands, a suitable backdrop for wizards. A different alphabet fits with stone monuments. Her father a Pict, her brother Viking. Born of the skin of Longboat, ivory horn of Northwall. She takes to the mountain tops, home of the gods. Sickle in hand, wolf and bear are friends as Neptune washes ashore in the Firth of Lorne, collecting horseshoes for his steeds. So sin Ella agus Lachlan. Gurmagi. Agus Lenimir Ryanish, leis an géad an Ella ón lár nua revlóide, a lár le fáil wemse, mátá se bigéire. Agus an titletá an dáse ná sean, agus seo cean a bhí fáilte hana chumá. Trí hempis sa tháinig mé a chean uamh an ghrín ag lonra tú scoilt sa díon, cuma an éagsúil ar an áit, an ísmór a bhí ar granta ar ai, gan éon bhéilú ar an bháiltiú a bhí aige do chumrádaithe. Ba é tús catha, Gera or, is ag aige gomach háit becheart a lína chatha haint, ach anis a chríomh ar leachtíomh, ní héin sé amach faoine cnic I man Shelaga few. Finn, I happened on his cave by accident, sun shining through a skylight, a place apart. His great age engraved on his face, but there was no holding back in how he greeted his comrades. First onto the battlefield and last to leave, knew where the battle line was drawn. Now he sits with his sword at his feet. He doesn't leave, not even to go among the hills to hunt. Agus an céad don Ella ón Musa seo ebre trí in Muel. So no Conan Muel, dinna Gin Fina, is still a gwil atna gear Conan Muel. Far gnód in Scach Shack Conan má tá ein over Ellen Wetch no Gau Harish. Bon an sé an kraken is a luach gan áras leis an gúlú economicta hui sé a imirca hig an astrále. Inis nuair lumtar é ní stucky allen ach búta sí og a witcher as. Conan Whale. He's an excellent businessman. If you have any spare wool, do not pass him. He always gets the skin and its value. With the economic downturn, he had to immigrate to Australia. Now, when he shears each year, it's not woolen socks he creates, but the finest of an Ugg boot. Agus chamála sin an chéad an eile I níon na féine agus fáil seanach sin aró sig cujagi so Éana chean ar dal lia gan cumas an gára dhéanamh sitse go mars de hir ag chur an dómh in a dheal, de éine a thugann clústó, ag séna grál bart de réir an rithair tábhachtá den seandram, gan crógachtar bich an tub ach iad cean dána ró vishnú, is ró vinnig faoi yasa. Ní bhíonn sé sásta iche nó ó le duine be, a é ag airis a lagan hain gin ineocht go dubach chríoch. Oisín after the Fianna. A blind old man without humour, forever seated at the table, writing wrongs, saying black was white to anyone who would listen, denying that truth was important to the old crowd. As a band of warriors, they lacked courage, were too bold, and more often than not, bewitched. He does not eat or sup with anyone, just sits and recites his version of the stories of the Fianna to himself, sorrowfully. Cearcolóir agus an chéad mar dúir siad á spirida on a lighter note, maybe not so light, but Tommy chun cúpla dán béirle lébanis. I'm just going to read some of my English poems from the they're all translated to Irish as well, but well actually the ones in the collection, Bonnie Gear Sarmilk. It's called A Curse on Those Who Harassed Me at Work, and it's my favourite poem, I have to say. It's the only one I ever get a request for, and it's very cathartic. A curse on those who harass me at work. I have the Irish version is Mar Vashgarb Shu the Charastam is Megubber, but it doesn't have the same ring to it quite. A curse on those who harass me at work, on their next bite, may they choke. May their every phone call be a hoax. May they need an undertaker and a priest before next midsummer feast. May someone forget to pay Sharon, their flesh and blood be rat-infested carrion. May their every effort end in failure, unreasonable, dysfunctional, uncouth harasser. May their every cop fall from the dresser, their every bicycle be without mud splasher. Each time they go for a stroll, may they end up eye deep in a pothole. May each month see them up the duff, their every golden thing turn to fluff. Oh, they who are full of poisonous stuff, may their ill-gotten gains go up in a smoking puff. May their curse of poets on their head for every malicious word they said. When I think of the threats they uttered, I wish their offspring permanently scuttered. Each penny they earn that they may flutter, and they unable to talk but stutter. May every ill settle on their head. May they never rest easy in their bed. For my good name they stole, may they be eternally engulfed in a flaming black hole. For all the sleepless nights they caused me, may they go completely crazy. May their only visitor be a flea, and he to bring his extended family. May be they bad-minded, jealous, or malefactors. This poet never forgets her detractors. Tá bronam fin coffee machine, tá ag muku. Okay, so Sinead. I have another couple of English, light-hearted English poems that I haven't translated to Irish as of yet. The first one is called This Poem Is Not Working. We've all had this problem, folks, isn't that right? This poem is not working. I wrote and wrote for the obsession to lift, but no sonnet could shake its unearthly grip, only fueled the already unmanageable flame. In fact, I'd say the compulsion has increased. In last week's class, we discussed the redemptive power of the curse, a cure-all for every rancor. I'm reticent, of course, to ridicule love, for fear the muses would get a resentment, and what poet worth their salt would curse the muse, say she had a wayward heart, couldn't inspire to save her life. O daughter of Zeus, let satire's keen knife weaken the arm of this untested fixation, enough that it lacks the strength to even fashion a pair of brogues. Let its rotten flesh flee from its bones. May someone wet the bed it lies in and feed it nothing but litres of poison. May large horned bats cover its moon. May this mania be lifted soon. After giving said poems no leading roles in life's newly scripted drama, eager to unfold. Agus Kate Donnell, this poem is called As Crooked as a Ram's Horn. That's the title. And as Paul said earlier, Tá Alíonn agam cumá leis na dánta, so Tá Alíonn agus dánta sa leabhar. Bí meg Jane of Alíonn. I do some visual artworks. Actually, I have a piece in the Clifton Arts Festival at the moment in the Window Trail. So this is about my ability as a visual artist, as crooked as a ram's horn. Crooked as a ram's horn, I try to be one of those intellectual poets talk of staring at goats and mean something hotly brainy to do with ancient Greece. But as my elder sibling points out, I can't spell, and furthermore, never remember stuff from books, only idioms my mother and Nanny would yell. Nanny, that's a type of goat, right? Things like, get up off your gugaja. The only other time I encountered gugaja was when reading Crane Aquila. I suppose Morton O'Kine was an intellectual of a sort, but he wrote in Irish, so it doesn't count. As for art, I can't even pretend. Going back to what I was saying earlier on, as crooked as a ram's horn. So Donnell, Queen Card, Being a Poet. It was actually published in, Ivan Boland published this poem in Poetry Ireland Review. It was a RT Poem of the Day last April, I think, sometime in April. Being a Poet. A necklace of wrens. When he was young, Michael Hartnett lay down in a field one day, lots of wrens settled on his chest. Drolin, rinan ein, this more a chuid spiag to hain. Iris Susa vanity is toward them peen cune hernally. His granny said that he would be a poet. I recall laying down on the grass at the foot of a hill when I was young, out of sight of mother, dodging work. She told me I was going to be a poet, but when she spoke, it sounded more like a threat. Agus Seo cúpla dón faoin Grogan Kuchev. Do you remember that from Leaving Cert? Grogan Kuchev? Okay. Vertical drop. Not wanting to fall at the last hurdle and be found storing coal in the bathroom, or with the cows lowing in the pasture of his bedchamber, he resolved to take her to dinner, his treat, make polite simile and metaphor. She thought his speech lilted classical and was impressed with the bachelor piece, despite previous undertakings never to sit again in his audience. Later, they waltzed and did the foxtrot beneath the Egyptian cotton silken moon. He was all petals and silver gilding, but when the sun surfaced and without the consolation of night's blanket, it was the customary underground river to be negotiated, potholing in treacherous straits. Agus ceanatá gcuaite leis sin, alpine butterfly, ní hé sin a féileáin. Atá sé banteach leis an potholing. Okay. Fused to the mattress like a bronze to its base, he waits for his biologist, a relative newcomer, unaware of the challenge that presents itself, or how to negotiate pitches, squeezes, and floods as she explores virgin systems. Not doubting her intrinsic motivation, he admires the Greek etymology of her title as she fastens ropes. With hard hat and halogen lamp, her PVC excites him as she ascends this vertical cave using a figure of 8 loop and alpine butterfly, expertly attached rigging she dives. Agus touching on them Filler Rasher and Gaelga sa Laura to make Shula not. What you told Kian Ella Tib and Tibella, the kitchen weeps a love song, be me, so I say, Cur Nikin, so I told Adrian Milakela, the kitchen weeps. Partial recall that fades, this recycled pine dresser standing against pastel colours, touch of beeswax to be certain. Skilled craftsmen trace delicate leaves with honed tools and soft hands. Decorative plates apart on shelves. Vacant space had to be the correct measure. Pheasants in flight, not cuttlefish at swim. My only heirloom, sepia tones on porcelain. Annually, I placed this treasured turkey plate on painted table for 6. Ignore hot juice that streams from a slight fissure in the dish. Mop essence that drips on seats, no yielding rag. Only cautionary words, busy fingers, pleasing aromas that penetrate. Belfast sink, a centerpiece, fully immersed. We roll up sleeves and prepare to eat everything on the table. Agus Arasharish Kuji Ravlojak, Home Jane of Doctorach der Father of Anam David Jones, Phila Anglach Breathnach, Anglo-Welsh poet and visual artist. Agus Tá Reint Donta Screep Adam, Bunnyha or a Hale, Agus or a Haher. I've written poems based on his life and he fought in the First World War, his life and his poetry. He's famous modernist painter and writer. So on Kate Dawn atá sa leabhar seo réabhlóide funny ar sin nó ag ceardú crachana I bhacail. Muil gára sa lúnta idir lúbinaí a chlárthaíonn crógacht fuilte na gáilicha dearga bringlóidí, scríban sionní is éon chacha an dorcadas, crothaíonn jingoism a chuid Christian anam, paléid de ua aimad is popéir, Shrecha ordbrúcha, mór lús sligáin shrapnel. Ícail tusta lachú tíb hir de chán, jaun a warú, craven is géig a chardú an tíb elegin inó dá scúb is popéir. Tá mucid jaun a yíbert ar fór, fehecha na halfeistna a vracaled pian no dúch. Uanta Curtin gúlach nó hablóg dóte na neslin gé tititha le mácan na popéir. Jane Jarmad éonrad a churnagar. Dahís deag glas Frankín éan chur cícha ghirsha, casrún scríbin an bailachel amach. Cúnaí an icha, crothaí an támad ó hearts na scóhanna sínta, brú an tíb túchail an síl seo. Cur isca ar scafhfuil virga, snáchanna ama ag titcham, Jane an chrí Irish an Incan go hachwar. Making shapes in words, after poet and painter David Jones. Solomon chuckles in parentheses, bloody heroics of poppies replace streams, foxes and birds of battle scrape the dark. Jingoism creates its own makeshift crosses, palette for copper, wood or paper. High-pitched screech of shrapnel shell, coerced to paint silence behind trees, slay demons. On the other side of windows, shapes branches and twigs for brush and page. I have to write monsters in words, trace veins of fiends with pencil or ink. Sometimes charcoal from the burnt embers of fallen dreams adds weight to paper. Forget order. Colour padlocks and foreheads, put breasts on doors, turn ciphers inside out, silence delight, paint the past in shadows, crowd life with afterlife, water grand illusions, threads of time fading. Briefly, heart imitates mind. Agus an céad ceannaile, nó, Fuihalamh. Curéis sná be drone gallery fui isca sha in a will clochan Kirkgoga is claustra scapiha Kirkliam hart fad is a hapaman two on costa eg paring gan of bon lack is ishki glassa spared in dat gurm glass in mask na mahan squilum cargaha bad sa tamer lorg na fearna tagum chlacha trama a turview o love go love mar bheadh galgad cluine orsa an tú ó bhrú síosmuid ar neistir. Ní cuirdaíoch faoi isce gan a chuid búirt féin choréal geal is slí an brecht tréarcha faoin is dúptar de chuid búirt bun Colette scapach. New words. After swimming towards this subterranean gallery of beehive huts, stone cloisters, I circle around as you scuba dive off the coast, bringing with you white sand, green waters, sky of deepest azure. Amongst the huts, I unloosen stones in my search for the truth. I discover heavy rocks delivered from hand to hand like ancient family woes, weighing us down on our journey. Curating underwater is no picnic. Bright coral and shells, translucent carpet under which to brush your troubles, kaleidoscopic rock bottom. Agus céad ceann eile ná Grace. Gan drécht tíre cachraán nach crán is fear, fér trasnar fear, crachna gawacha, talbhithe giúnas na dúireachta, Behi chacha ein inchin, súl siúlach an ein etchelt, bricini ama no an grian, ach gan ein laganam kinte an. Umacha kagi mar an génachu, cheer me diersche de soort, agrin fir ord on kier huhel mo goord is kiartin sheed Grace ura, ag quinál or cora ag siúl, idir fearras gasúr na tíra I lig ag baga ón solas gon darcacht gon solas. Patterns. No urban landscape, only the cross diagonals of trunk or grass, blurred shapes entrenched the silence of exile. Beasts of battle, all of a mind, moving eye of the bird on high, freckles of time or sun, but no names of place as certainty. Accoutrements of war, all the same, a sentence or term of sorts. His urn not yet on mother's mantle, no cushion or pillow for comfort. Lines of men form order from chaos, keeping conversation between countries, between children and men, embossing a new pattern, moving from darkness to light. Moving from light to darkness, darkness to light. Agus chuig nói mé sús le cúpla cean eile ón leabhar dó hangach.
Let's better ach am le Rá
Oh yeah, just ceanháin, yeah, cúpla cean so mar sin. Liturgy agus rainsong, okay. Liturgy. He came of age in the Great War, alternating moments of collapse and attack. He came of age in the Great War, empty helmet of the opponent, ghost on the battlefield. He came of age on the Western Front, amongst the cadence of gunfire, the whip of bullets. He came of age on the Western Front, dull rattle of explosives, hurried barrage of command. He came of age during his first advance, filthy pantomime of the heart. He came of age during his first advance, scattered fittings of friends sleep beneath a thin layer of peat. He came of age with a new percussion bomb, standing aside to let a stretcher case past. He came of age with a new percussion bomb, temporarily numbed by the obscenity of death. He came of age in a Metz wood, the line of the trees pierced his leg like a sword. He came of age in a Metz wood, conditioned by veils of tears, the wound of impolite words. Rain Song. This is not a poem to encourage more rain, but rather to hope that the current rain that we're having will cease. Quick no melody and can shop. When rain falls, a melody loops this grey sky into music. It pretties the landscape glistening in its own pastels and turns the page to another day, times when nothing else could. I lap up its nourishment, its sequence forms pictures like a rosary. When I was too young to have my own words, in soft rain, I see my grandmother's face, smiling, black and white, fading to colour, and hens at her feet. Her leather booties were lined with fur. Indoors, her prayer book listened in its brown coat, bulged with words and pictures, memorial cards, the letter she received from her son who'd been missing in action in Korea. I remember he wore a hat like Brezhnev. The whistle of the kettle on the range keeps time with my prayer, the rain, as turf burns its silence in ashes. Outside, the apple trees hold up their arms and give away names of their leaves. I wandered through grass, wondering which berries to eat, and trip over mushrooms and dock leaves. The rain points the way to ancient crockery and clay pipes that were Dujini, to those who knew each stone wall, each hiding place in the cutaway bog. Thanks very much, Paul. Carmagi as Eish Juglam. Sinead.
Gur míle mágad de Colette as an léamh sin rís as fad caithim rá. Agus quadragus mór leis an leabhar nua. Congratulations on the new book. Hopefully you'll be able to get some kind of launch now that some kind of real launch now that the world is opening up.
Hopefully, I was looking forward to launching it at Rafter Returns Poetry Festival. That's now been cancelled as well. It was supposed to be on in October, but something will turn up. Thanks to everybody. Thanks for all your kind remarks.
Thank you, Colette.
Thank you.
Okay. Agus anish dar ged ella Colm Breathnach. Státe réige Colm. Fille agus scéalaí go bhfuil seachcín de cnúsach filiochta móide rá rugadánta fáisithe aige chamá leis an uarscéal contric an bhela bháin clú ar chonachta gáilehs in ní. Gnóigh sé an príomhgúis go cnúsach filiochta I gomórtas litartha an aireachtas ceithre uaire agus sa bhliain 1990 bhrun an foras cultúra géal Vericánach dúis an bhatléirigh air. Cha sé tréimhsí ina scríbhneoir cónaithe sa Chín agus sa Slovéin agus bhí sé ina scríbhneoir cónaithe I gcoláiste Fádric, Drum Conrach I 2015, Astrioich dáanta leis go 8 cín de cheangacha sé tíiricha leabhar cóir 2015 rá a héimiúil dáanta agus dáanta nua an chnúasach is déanaí uig. So Colm Breathnach, poet and novelist, has published 7 collections of poetry, along with 2 selected editions and the novel Contric and Bhela Bháin, Clúra Connachta, 2009. He has been awarded the Principal Poetry Prize at Conradh na Gaelga's annual Oireachtas literary competitions 4 times, and in 1999 the Irish American Cultural Institute presented him with the Butler Literary Award. He has had literary residencies in China and Slovenia, and in 2015 he was writer in residence in St. Patrick's College, Drumcondra. He has had poems translated into 8 languages, and his latest collection, Tíreacha, Laura Choer, 2015, contains new and selected poems. So Leverdol Curigi de Lava Lechel Anish Lahaig Colm Breathnach Fáilte Colm.
Gurmagad Paul. Fedliv fad me chluisian an son. Anwa. Is mór an ordum camera the lev down to Colette an son agus Treslím an leabhar nua le na dáanta réamhlóideach son mar díortha when is on a henevasta agus as na dáanta Beerland son a leag sí chama. Tás ná mé le dán dar teidir lung. Lemen Renner dóisisin son le men Bearlesberg er me cúpla focail faoin dá I rétra chuma lung. Amach as bád a hánamar go léir. Lung a cheol lé haar tuin. Crown bara chweil feiste einte. A chlach brí ón ngae is a héad anam a glín an leine in a sí stig in a borg hís. As clitte baidín cream, hánasa dír. Bád 8 seas is 7 rá fan gach sleas, agus ceann spártha a gúil an chléimhúirte. Bád gur hín stúid ad a stúma isteach sa chúltra as a deide. Bhí míad go léir a teachta dír de hír mar chinne daoine. I dír in ia seo lína gréine, nó ar halamh críoch a géin, is ní si a annig an rian a agamíd nar níag, ná rian éin ar chríomh, rian fir ar bhannaí, rian linge ar tain. Amach as baidín beg beosach cumir óir, mar a bheith a gás glúine sa fiú séin, a hánamar go léir. This poem is, in translation, it's titled A Ship. And I was delighted to be invited by Daedalus publishers to take part in a project. Invited poets were asked to respond to items in the National Museum of Ireland. And I chose the Browter boat, which is part of the Browter hoard, which was discovered near Derry. And it's a hoard of gold objects from the 1st century BC. And the boat is a small little gold boat, and I wrote about that. And I was just thinking there that sometimes when you're writing a poem, you discover what the poem is about by actually writing it. And I think this poem shows us that maybe this boat would be a good symbol for Ireland, because we're actually all immigrants in Ireland, because Ireland is an island. So I was thinking this poem was written kind of during the immigration into Ireland. And I was thinking that these new immigrants are as much Irish as we are, because, as I say, we all immigrated into the island at some stage. So I think that's what the poem is about. Every one of us came by boat, a ship that sailed the waves over, fitted with a tapering mast that passed vigour from the wind into the flesh of the people seated in the hold below. From a feather-like little round boat, I came ashore, a boat that had 8 thwarts and 7 oars along each side, with one to spare at the rear to port, a boat with a long, steady rudder, stretching aft from the stern. As a race, we are all forever making landfall in this sundown land, or far away in places, and the trace we leave behind will no more last than the trace of a bird on a branch, the trace of a man on a woman, the trace of a ship on the ocean. Out of a small boat, neat and trim and golden, as if in a glass case in the museum, every last one of us came. The reference there, by the way, the 3 traces, I have to acknowledge that that's from an old Irish triad. I stole it for the purposes of this poem. The next poem I read is another poem which shows us as islanders, and maybe what's so great about being islanders. Its title is Aegean. Chamáinimir siar, siad a dír, ní siar ná éireann fiú a bhain, sa bheith go ngálmar thar ghruthad agus isteach ar a lán. Is leanimir ling go dánimir dí tráig, is léimimir amachchan son, is hiúlímir dí ar an lúine isteach sa sáile. I lánaigh sin, go dastíonn an taighear a bhú sin bhain, thugann an taigí an mór. Danimir sa bharige, a feire ar na spéile, bhí fós an ad chianna again. I find the west of Ireland a particularly magical place for some reason. And for the last few years, I've been taking trips to Achill in the west of Ireland. So I suppose Cork people and Mayo people are sharing a certain pain at the moment. We're aching for an All-Ireland win. So I'll read this poem to the people of Achill. Ocean. We drove west across country, farther west than Ireland even, as we crossed a bridge onto an island and kept on till we came to a strand. Once there, we got out of the car to walk into the sea up to our knees. We are islanders who once in a while require that reaffirmation the great ocean provides. We stayed in the water, watching the horizon, still there, still as far away as ever. Next poem I'll read is, I must admit, it's one of my favorite poems by myself. Again, I think it's a poem that you write, something kind of hits you, and you write a poem, and you have a notion what it means, but then you learn kind of after writing the poem what the poem means, what the poem thinks it means, if you like. I'll read it in Irish first, of course. An Laur Orsa. Tóg an Laur Orsa so. Gwyl yn clúdach leharir y dole lehe. Gwyl na ciwsne na lehanigán skehe. Agus an dúch or leis y trege. Tóg an Laur Orsa so. Is lege. Leg pe meida is oil nus federlet. Feig piaun is teir har ein litrach aun atá geog. Skrisamach an okul atá mihe leir. Agus brakesteach fokul dat de chud heen. Mar chausúr chud fokul elle as a jere. Skrig an ní is oinnet. Fút heen a há go hum lá an ish. Din an méitse céim chéim. Is chihir dre chéle. Lihe an chlúdig. Skehe an a giúsne. Agus tregen an dúig. A dollar goal. Chihir an chnávirúd. A tharlúd. Dan Laur Orsa. Dianfer trachtas oer. In English, it's entitled The Ancient Book. And as I was saying, the poem kind of tells you eventually what it's about. And the book, to me, what I imagine the book is actually a manuscript, let's say an Irish handwritten manuscript with a leather cover on that. But I think this poem has to deal not just maybe with the Irish language and how the Irish language tradition is passed on from generation to generation, but I think it's about any tradition, like family lore, let's say, and maybe musical traditions and so forth, that it's only a tradition if it's constantly renewed and if it's constantly changed, if you like. So this is what was meant, I think, by going over indistinct words or adding words of your own, and particularly adding new material at the end of the book. I only realized this kind of after writing the poem and reading it a few times. The Ancient Book. Take this ancient book with its leather cover becoming moldy and the crumbling edges of its pages and the ink on them becoming faint. Take this ancient book and read it. Read as much as you want or as you can. Take a pen and go over any letters there that are fading. Delete any words that are indistinct and insert words of your own. Finally, add other words at the end. Write anything you want. It is entirely up to you now. Do all this step by step, and you will see by degrees the mold on the cover, the crumbling of the margins, and the fading of the ink reversed. You will see the usual miracle taking place. The ancient book become fresh treatise. Paul mentioned there earlier that I spent some time in China. That's the wonderful thing from being from Cork. I was invited to go on a writer's residence to Shanghai by the Munster Literature Centre, and they have a connection with the Writers Association in Shanghai. And that's how I got to go to Shanghai. This poem came out of that. Shanghai, when I was there, was a population of 22 or 23 million people, and a lot of strange things went on in the public parks. They're vital and precious areas in a city that's so crowded. And one day I was out walking in a strange part of the city, well, a part of the city that I hadn't visited, and I found this small public park. It's called Fujing Garden, and I saw this man doing Tai Chi in the garden. So this is my reaction to that. I read the Irish first. Ingordine Fujing. So Liam Godasthian o ar an Tai Chi. To she ille na parka pugli, a hine gen a hiachi. Go gwinoch a lava, hormon na trochta na sraiden amach. Godar godi sprat kionish na nos or shoe at hart. Agus Mulian mar Harlian, hiúil na berte ban óg an a goltacha ganó, nor hagan siad faoin a rain. Dinan na galóin fiú, fo léman a hút, trasna na plásóige féir, de ré rihin chos siúd. E glacha céim do bhaul chéim, a baiste glas talúnsa, e measc na de hispéide. So líam gan inan fear an Tai Chi, an tóm a chur na stadbeag nach, e go ducag ann de spás, nach Aodha son áitse. In Fujing Garden, Shanghai. It seems to me the man doing Tai Chi wants to stretch every dimension of the public park with his arms, that his hands would hold back the noise of the traffic on the streets and cover all here under a silent sheet. And indeed, it so happens, the two women in business suits slow their walk as they come under his thrall. Even the sparrows hop across the lawn to the rhythm of his gait, as he takes pace after slow pace on the green patch of ground surrounded by skyscrapers. It seems to me the man doing Tai Chi stops time almost, in order that a space not anywhere here should come into being. Lena mé reigle Shanaghan do chud spís an dansa bhaid siarnis ach is táin táchtach do chud héin stoilm agus smaile me léamh nuair bhíon léamh dá hangacha ar donna gom. Tren Varan Breach. Ní lauríonn si a hiile an áitsa. Is ní lean bhuaíocht ag ma hanga níos móinte. Níor chuig mar fréacha síos ach fadáire, is haide dro anis cheall taca bhuathe. Cag salan ar an scrá uachta, is trog síosa gríon tíochta. Ní féidir le táil a hiile ar a murí, ar ma chalad hain is fás cuioch me. Ar a móthir idir gá chathair, bhfuil gá anim ar gach ceannachú, léim na focail ar na cóthraí. Tá me taistil tren Varan Breach, is tá gá anim a go chéan bhaile an. Cléanna, cléin, Cíl Dara, Kildare, baile gá, Littleton, Cúile Tódara, Port Darlington. Tanim dúchas sa chló dal, Cléan ancient ar star na háit. Tanim dúchas sa chló slú, Cléan ancient a dul ó chlos. A taistil dom tren Varan Breach, téimán dúbh go dtí an geall. The blúiseacht ar maistear Cléan is sfíre an belach a héin. Is mé an rudre a gháin an timppel, dan tacht de ruher an iere doig. A cha cuislein an nach noen zood, is cléirigh grón gur mór an ró. Maríon hain is bailach nach gus an ód, chaim tauntathe ag a cearnig sa ród. Idir há gha, idir há ochu, idir há enim, idir há agine, idir há áit, idir há hanga, a chaham mo hev, idir há hev. This poem it's an illustration of what it's like to be an Irish speaker in Ireland. And I must say, I have read in Ovale on site, on the spot before. And so it's a pleasure to be back in Cork, if it's only virtually. But I wanted to read a poem about Cork, but I decided, since how it's a virtual reading, that I'd read a poem that's virtually about Cork, in so far as it's set as a journey from Kildare to Cork. And it's my thoughts kind of looking at road signs and things like that. So it's called Through the Speckled Land. And it starts, she won't speak to me. She is the land, or the country or the land, both of which are feminine in the Irish language. That's why I mentioned she won't speak to me. She won't speak to me anymore, this place. My tongue is received with poor grace. My roots penetrated only so far, and they wither now for lack of water. Salt was spread on the upper scrawl and ploughed through to the lower layer. She can no longer nourish her brood in my own land as a stranger viewed. On the road between two cities, each of which has two names, I read the words on the signs. I am travelling through the speckled land, and every town here has two names. Cloyna, Clane, Kildare, Kildare, Bailaghaw, Littleton, Coiletudre, Port Arlington. The native name in italic script, a biased telling of the lore of place. The native name in the lesser script, a muted telling in slow fade. As I travel through the speckled land, I move from white to black. My journey is taken aslant. The way I follow is zigzagged. I am the night going the long way around, to attack from behind, to try to confound. But there are castles I can't assault, and clerics before me, proud and preening. I can't protect my own queen even. My road is blocked by lowly pawns. Between two hues, between two names, between two views, between two words, between two tongues, between two worlds, I live my life between two lives. Paul, one or two more poems? I'll go for maybe two then. This is a very recent poem. It was published in the Munster Literature's new Irish language magazine, Anas. The first edition of that, it was published in that. It's called Seachas Uisce, and I need to take a bit of a long breath for this poem. Seachas Uisce. Seachas Uisce, cadile tá sa bharige mhór. Seachas Uisce agus éisc agus famine agus fochaisí, cadile tá sa bharige mhór. Seachas Uisce agus éisc agus famine agus fochaisí agus portáin agus glamig, cadile tá sa bharige mhór. Seachas Uisce agus éisc agus famine agus fochaisí agus portáin agus glamig agus sáile, agus rónt agus mílta móra agus tangta go bhfuil glinúint na gréára, agus smuglaí róin agus planctón, agus dainnecha dorocha do óil, cadile tá sa bharige mhór. Seachas Uisce agus dainnecha dorocha do óil, agus sáile agus bátha agus sceáin, agus ólaí ólaí, cadile tá sa bharige mhór. Pleisteach, há pleisteach sa bharige mhór. Há málaí pleisteacha sa bharige mhór. Tá tíada agus seanga pleisteacha, budéil pleisteacha agus crátaí pleisteacha sa bharige mhór. Agus tá micra chorníní pleisteacha, agus na mílte milliún mír na pleisteacha eile sa bharige mhór. Seachas Uisce agus pleisteach, catá sa bharige mhór. This is an English translation that I've just done recently, and I haven't read this translation live before. So here goes. Other than water, what does the wide sea contain? Other than water and fish and seaweed and reefs, what else lies in the wide sea? Other than water and fish and seaweed and reefs and crabs and lobsters, what else is in the wide sea? Other than water and fish and seaweed and reefs and crabs and lobster and brine and seals and whales and waves with the sun glinting on them and jellyfish and plankton and dark unfathomed depths, what else is in the wide sea? Other than water and dark unfathomed depths and brine and drowning and terror and roller upon roller upon roller, what else is in the wide sea? Plastic. The wide sea contains plastic. There are plastic bags in the wide sea. There are plastic strings and wires, plastic bottles and plastic crates in the wide sea. And there are plastic microbeads and thousands of millions of other pieces of plastic in the wide sea. Other than the wide sea, what does the sea contain? Sorry. Other than water and plastic, what does the wide sea contain? So I finish off with another old poem. I say another old poem. I finish off with another old poem, I suppose I should say. Really. Give me one more old poem. This poem was given a new lease of life there recently. It was set to music for the Irish artistic music effort, providing kind of operatic or classic style songs, like leader style songs for the Irish language. So I'll bash off it without singing it. It's called Scoilvan. And I'll finish up with this. And just thank Paul again and all of you for being here and listening. Scoilvan. Faim de valhe an ngai, cuacht an bhrech. Cím im lína de haibh am as an sléite. An hríon orga a rion os a giún, is í sin gile de hú. Is mó ná banta, is tú an ile bhean. De há láimh timpeall na cholin a docht san ihe. Agus tanáil chúl na bhanáil, chisan na gaothe in ullúir sún. Mórtas farige de há bham a gheall, is iad ag éirí féin tiad a gorm. I lár tinóil is aimint lóverta, a éman darca an ile air. Scoil tú a bhogan mar sáileat, tre chairhí cráite na mílte gealt. A chnicta anúr a bháin, is I chéan tú gach lá ó hin, le hairí na gréine is ina dul fé. Timlíne á léirú mar scá na sléite, de chúrachta tá chútha an ngáil an bhreach. Shadow woman. I get your scent on the wind, perfume from the heather. See your side outlined in the hills. The golden sun rising above them is the brightness of your eyes. You are more than a woman, you are all women. Your arms about my body on the bed at night. Your breath on the back of my neck, the wind rustling in sleeping foliage. The swell of your white breasts rising beneath blue silk. At a gathering, you are adamant, attracting glances from every man. A shadow moving as you please through the demented dreams of 1,000 men who saw you once and see you every day since, at sunrise and sunset. Your profile defined as a shadow in the hills, your perfume carried from the heather on the wind. Ramil Mahagat Glade.
Fian Leif Shin Gahinta Gafadachalam, Gurbnina Magadas Shin. Thank you very much. That was a fantastic reading. Yeah, we had a real treat tonight with these two Irish language poets. There aren't many Irish language speakers in our audience tonight, but those who have Cúpla Focal, I'm sure they really appreciated the bilingual especially aspect of this. And for foreign, we get people from all over the world attending these events too, for them to have the experience of the sounds, the rich sounds of the language, and then to be given translations to go with them is a real special treat. So thank you both. Gur míle milliúna agah, míle milliúna ma agah. Thanks a million times to our two guest poets. And very best of luck with your writing in the future, and hope to see more of you before long. Thank you very much. Should we give another round of applause, please, to our guests? Thank you. Okay. Anish Glakimid Alamanacha Don Session McAskelton. Now we're going to take names for the open mic session. So anyone who would like to say a poem on the open mic, please just pop your name into the chat box. You can put open mic in your name, and we'll put you straight onto that list. And we will begin that shortly, as soon as we have a few names. We would love to hear your poems. And of course, they don't need to be in Irish. So, but if they are, they'll be very welcome too. All right, super. We're getting a few names coming in already. Well, we've got plenty to start with. So we'll begin straight away with the first person on our list, Catherine Ronan.
Galer. Bandon is the only poetry town picked by Poetry Ireland in Cork. So please check out the events that are going on either through Poetry Ireland website or Creative Bandon. Now, I wrote this poem after a workshop with Afric McGlinty, and it was a poem that I was trying to write for a long time about a man who was found buried in the walls of Bandon. So it's called Walled Man. Blackberry moon of the lost sea melts like a fugitive in the rain. A rusty bell calls all those lavender-soaked hands before the wall. Buried in darkness, last cigarette still beating between his lips, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. Grey teeth falling into the river of pink dream, hands pushed to a crumbling future. Walled man of Bandon, excavated at last, thread veins like eels clinging to his last stitch.
Brilliant. Thank you, Catherine. It's the first time I've heard of that story, man buried in the walls of Bandon.
Yeah, I'm not a native of Bandon, but that's the most interesting fact I've ever learned about Bandon. So,
yeah, Bandon is a poetry town, one of the poetry towns at the moment, isn't it?
it is one of the 21 poetry towns in Ireland. Yeah, and it's got a huge program of events and workshops, and look it up. There's lots of things going on.
Great. Are you going to take your poem there and read it there?
I am going to take my poem there and read it there on the open mic on the 18th. And I'm also running an open mic night on the 17th for Culture Night in Bandon. So I might put my email into the chat maybe, and you can email me if you want to read in Bandon in person. I think it's going to be an open air live event.
All right, lovely. Thanks, Catherine.
Are you okay, Paul?
That's the one I'll be participating
in
as well. That's the one I'll be in as well. So
Sue Blue's going to be here.
Yes,
Yay, Sue Blue!
Let's gather some power for that place there.
Yeah, super. Thank you. Okay. Next up on the mic we have Richard Pierce, Richie McPhirish.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
The first poem I've done in 2 years, so I'm pretty chuffed to share it. So if you can remember what my poems, they might take a little minute, but anyway, it goes, after weeks of no sleep, I realized I hadn't been awake in years, condemning myself to waiting and fear, My heavy worth placed on the shoulders of another, smothering growth, yet playing the dote, for it was easier to feel aware than be aware. And I would stare down anyone who acknowledged this in me, anyone who clued that I might have an unconscious issue, one that highlights a misuse of my time, a misuse of my life. For I was living a life that had already passed and cast its reflections onto my present, and I was hesitant to trust because my righteous experience dictated that only my reality be reflected. And instead of acknowledging the pattern, the smattering of explosions caused by resentment and the abandonment of self, I placed the blame on the other when they fell from their perch of perfection that they never aspired to reach. And I leached onto these beliefs so intensely that the immensity clouded my vision and I couldn't engage in revision of myself. And I placed myself on a shelf separate from the issues. And in times of contentment, I fixated on a future, using it as a suture to seal something as solid. What we have, where we'll go, what I'll know, replaced where I am, what I have, and what I understand. And I reprimanded myself for never feeling settled in my skin without ever really letting truth in. And people get tired of that shit because they see it when you won't. They say it and you don't hear. They feel it and you still remain in fear of ever seeing beyond yourself. So finally, I'm saying, fuck it. I want to see stars for me. I want to read for me. I want to write for me. I want to cook for me, clean for me, work for me. I want to live for me. So finally, I'm confronting this need, this ego, this lifelong fallacy, and I'm becoming someone in the know. I'm becoming someone in the now.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for that. I'm glad you're back on the bandwagon, and we hope to see and hear more of you in the events to come. So great to see you again after so long. Next up on the open mic, we have Jim Crickard.
Hey guys, nice to be here. I hope this isn't too crass and brings down the level. It's called Software Bugs. A team of sexually frustrated engineers incubate the larvae. Like proud parents, they wait for them to hatch from their brackets. They feed on emojis, poop out commas, and cry in Comic Sans. The engineers rub their hands, chapped from excessive masturbation. With their thin arthritic fingers, they click and drag bugs into boxes, then conceal them inside clandestine emails about Viagra, before they're bulk sent on the hyperlink lorries across the internet highway. A plague of digital termites with an appetite for destruction, leaving your browser windows swinging off their hinges, and a giant gaping hole in the portal to your passwords. Those hungry locusts inhale the nuts and bolts of code beneath the screensaver smile of your daughter, where a pandemic is now happening. Antivirus kicks into action, keeping downloads to a 2 megabyte limit. Apps begin to socially distance. You dismiss the antivirus notification. Your phone is hyperventilating. Beneath your daughter's smile are xenomorphs breeding an alien queen. There is a holy war of terminators with black glasses and flamethrowers, pouring out fire until your phone is blown back to factory settings. For an hour and a half, you've been waiting for it to restore from a backup. And somewhere out there is an engineer rewarding themselves with an issue of Wire magazine in the lavatory. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Don't worry, you're not banned. Thanks a million. That was very good. Next up, we have Pam Campbell.
Okay. Okay, here we go. How to read a scar. Creased, faded, new roads marked in bruised permanence. Waxing, focusing, waning, surrendering, curbing cells gone rogue, scalpel parting skin, strip mining bodily fault. How to read you, my torso scattered scars. I read you like a river raging, pounding, banked boundaries, spilling epiphanies, promising peregrinations, two moon shield maiden cresting. Thank you.
Magic. Thank you, Pam. Thanks very much. And next up, we have Brian Franco.
Hello, everyone. I wrote this first poem at the same workshop Miss Catherine Ronan was at earlier this afternoon. There is no title for it. My neighbor waves hello to me from his mailbox, unaware I used to catch tiny frogs as a child in Puerto Rico. Unaware I used to believe I could walk on air in my dreams. I always notice his movie star perfect smile is above average large for his face, but I trust his sincerity more than other people's. His living room is lined with dozens of unglazed white clay sculptures of women in various poses. He claims with empty faces, he claims he can't translate facial features into beauty. The nude women seem to be oblivious to his presence. One reads a book, another sits in a chair, legs closed, and another lies on her side, one hand between her cheek and a compressed pillow. I like that they are unglazed. The look of raw, dry clay seems to be able to blend well wherever they are put. A windowsill or amongst glass whales and other showy sculptures on a glass shelved bottom-lit wall unit. I imagine their faces as pensive, not emotional or curious. I went to one of his gallery shows. There wasn't one sculpture under $2,000. They are not a full foot in length, yet they are full of mystery. They are women who understand that fennel is an ingredient that can overtake a dish and know the right time of year to pick wild blackberries in the Maine woods. And a couple more shorter pieces for you really quickly. I so badly wish to exist in your ink. I like watching you from afar when you write your poetry. When I hear your pen scratch against paper as I watch from the other room, when your emotions are transformed into ink. I hope the thoughts that are encompassed in the ink are about me, about how you like to lay your head on my pillow when I wake and rise before you, how those moments I'm absent from our bed leads you to my scent. How I taste your tangerine mint lip balm whenever you enter a room, how you allow me to win arguments that have nothing to do with you and everything to do with my need to vent. And my mirror is more honest when you look me in the eyes. I'm no longer afraid to cry in front of others. Knowing you exist in my life tells my tears it's okay to fall. How the sound of your voice lets me know hugs still exist. I hope the thoughts that become your poetry are laced with the love I feel for you, the love you infuse into my heart with your love. Finally, you poems with multiple homes pay extra property taxes. Home is not always a place with a roof or where I lay my head. Home is a place of comfort, a cocoon that allows me to fly away when I need to. Home is coated with familiarity, but can exist in total newness that becomes familiar. Home is where family is. Family is not always necessarily blood, but those who are willing to share your wounds and dress them without asking. Family can be home personified. Home can be when another poet reads a poem I wrote aloud as if I wrote it for their voice. They read my words and end up telling their own stories. My words dress their wounds unintentionally. Their voice cocoons my story, allowing it to fly somewhere new, a place familiar to a voice that found a home in my poem. My poem is as brand spanking new as it is familiar, and I have found a new home in someone else's voice. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for that, Brian. Thanks a million. And next up, we have Brendan Mulcahy.
Hi, Paul, everyone. It's a poem called "The Wave." I think it's a work in progress. I was buying a car the morning that you died. Living down the peninsula, my daughter miles away inland, I needed reliable wheels to keep in touch. I forget which grey it was. The well-off uncle over for the funeral would say gunmetal. It wasn't. Dad called at lunchtime and you died. I'd been up for the weekend before. We ate out at the Leaf Robinson. You'd been tired, but not obviously unwell. Now you were gone, and Dad was alone. I didn't drive straight up. I can't remember the details. How do people ever give verbatim quotes? It was Whitbread Gold Cup Day at Sandown, late April, jump racing's last hurrah. I'd backed Topsham Bay for a repeat win. I must have eaten and watched the race before setting out. It won, in a roundabout way, at 10-1, the actual winner thrown out for interference. A loss reversed. I felt it as your parting wave, an unearned benediction from the clouds. All should be well. 12 months on, and Dad was in Northwick Park with pneumonia. There, but not there, teasing us behind glass. I only pulled the Whitbread trick again, Usher's Island at 25-1. I told him, and he smiled from far away. And that was it. Both parents lost in puissant springtime. The winning post, the finishing line.
Thank you, Brendan.
Okay.
Thanks for that. And next up, we have our reigning 5-word challenge champion, Cathal Holden.
Hey guys, I have an uncharacteristically short one for you this evening. I'm calling it Octopus Bottles. We take the form of things like water, cuttlefish skins in octopus bottles until it all goes, and all that's left is the deep, clinging to disappearing sides, sticky things like grammar and faces until even they go. And then, just maybe, something else. Thank you. It was a wonderful evening. It's good to be here.
Fabulous. Thank you, Cathal. Thanks for that. We just have one person left on the open mic. I know there are a few who have not signed up yet, so you might want to... I see Alan Titley waving at me over there. Hey, Alan. It's lovely to see you. Alan, are you ready to go? Should we hear from you next?
Yeah, you can hear from me anytime if you like, you know.
Absolutely. It's all yours.
Okay, thanks. Well, as it's an Irish language night, partly at least, I have a poem which is a villanelle, and it's in Irish and in English. I have it in English, so I thought I like structure and things, so I read it in Irish first, and it's called Villanelle in Eigen Algorithm, a villanelle against the algorithm. So it's a kind of a poem like that. So this is the Irish version of it, if I can read it with this bad light in this room. Nobiach tutsa id algorithm in ish chihin agado, tan drina hanna ag omalan fesmacht, ag an aratas a vashin ag an vere ihan bo, mashin shachin a mega vroort, a chihe is gado, smuinig is ferle hoederas wil skrieten se racht, na tussa dal de voher fein, is to a sheer e lo, on a wiltergoni as sarsing juart, is stihe is es lo, an smuinig is DNA, moes le gana hoelacht, nor a bear le dealers dangen dit fein, van een ago. Sja, voglas mod en doris, jach algorithm gedo. En ik sjoch sjoede selle ille, le jach jaure hocht, als nor hatter goed er iederleen, geen gech geno, en sjoor voor een rasch goehe, de hiefnis is gans stro. Maar kafferdolle man aan teil, dat siersje is rasgelocht, is na bihose gebrach, tille het algorithm gedo. Nu niet weg, ach het cookie, het 4-9 fine gedo. Jach dunne le gapsrucht, de slaan kreen wacht, with clusta cor telefís ag trochtarí gach radio, mar fannic ní dúil bheith id algorithm inis chithe ná go dó. And this is the English version, such as it goes. Villanelle against the algorithm. Don't let you be an algorithm now or even ever. Too many fall under its absolute control, given to fashion, the latest thing that's clever. So don't give in to pressure. It's now or never. To keep hold of your mind, forget the polls and go your own way. Don't fear to sever your links with what you must think forever. Those thoughts with which all are consoled and suck you in despite your best endeavor. Banish all that everyone else's stuff, whatever holds you back from just being another prole, but makes you stupid. Remember, you are clever, and not just one more common eager beaver in the river of life, either swimming or on a roll, to what an algorithm can get or even lever. Nor for that matter either be a cookie, not much better than being one of that hill of beans without a goal, and not being you yourself, just another woolly weather in the grip of an anonymous algorithm for now or even ever. Will. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks a million, Ellen. I'm surprised it's taken so long for you to come back to us. I hope it's not because your algorithm Villanelle took a year and a half to write.
No, it's purely chance. That's all. Sometimes I just don't see that it's on. You know, that's all. So I mean, it's not. Don't believe me, it's not deliberate or any. It's just by pure happenstance. That's all. But I'm delighted to be invited all the time, and it's wonderful to see you all.
Yeah, and you too. Just giving you a dig there. I would love to see more of you anyway, going forward.
You will. You might want to hear me, but you can see me all right.
We always want to hear you, Alan. Always want to hear you. Okay. Okay, I think we just have a couple of more. Mags, did you want to say a poem on the open mic? Or am I... Did I
was just trying to think of something. I couldn't find stuff, so I'll default to a song that I know in Irish. So it was a song from my father, really. Glis Carnach and Nacht, dan wordt de wing gekjoenis kasseler. Shame weg om jacht toe in wachting en nacht. Al is er wat als me smoeinte de sper. The Mara picture near silence beg the hoor ik van een glas Mishag ik dacht een schach ik on ik van ik wil dan das betaald Hano the sonnet the gachin flanny down gachin rail Vincent Spear Ach heb him shagger corridor the anum hey now Aaron rail is gliscarnach to near her Oh, be goramach, let the cree a story. We say a scat, who ignition and the shadows. Ik frastal Eranuntus Ik frastal Eranuntus Ik frastal Eranuntus Anna
collaboration on the team.
We're also fads. Camila Muggets, fair play mags.
Out of practice musicians, we have no chance to play live. So I was doing a lot of improvising there at the end, let me tell you.
Thanks a million. Thank you for that. Okay, so just 2 more readers on the open mic, and our penultimate reader for this, which is our penultimate virtual event, hopefully, Rosalind Blue.
Thanks very much. I'm going to take my earplugs out so I can hear myself better, and I want to do my version of bilingual for the night, and it's a poem that I wrote in 2014, and I recently finished the translation. I've read this before at another Zoom event. I forget which one. So I'll read the German version first. It's a political poem, but here we go. So, Herrschaft. Wenn kalt und blicklos sich der Zukunft Pfade krümmen, sich bäumend buckeln unter herzlosem Kommando von Industriegiganten und globalen Banken und niemand mehr sein kleines Leben führen kann. Wenn unsere Körper kränkeln und ihr Leben lassen, weil nichts Gesundes mehr in unsere Mägen kommt und unter kontrollierten Spitzelkameraaugen Welternährung der neue kalte Krieg entflammt. Wenn liebende Familien auseinanderbrechen unter den Lasten ihrer Häuser, die zerbröseln, durch Welterwärmung oder Wahnsinns-Credit-Crash und ölige, von Erdbeben zerfrackten Lügen. Wenn auf der Erde alle Wesen nur noch leiden, dann ist der Preis des alten Fortschrittspfads zu hoch. Dann ist die Zeit gekommen, alles abzuscheiden, was herz- und blicklos unsere ferne Zukunft formt. Wenn wir den Giganten ganz die Luft entsaugen, weil wir einfach nicht mehr ihren Lügen folgen, ist Komplettverweigerung ihres Plans die Chance, ihnen gründlich jeden Boden zu entziehen. Mit Überlebenskraft und Mut kann's uns gelingen, so wie einst David auch den Goliath bezwang. So the title of the translation is a little bit funny for me because it's a foreign word, but I'll try again with the pronunciation. Hegemony. When future paths are bending cold with sightless eyes, and rear and bolt beneath commands from heartless ranks of corporate giants and impersonal global banks, and people can no longer lead their little lives. When soon our bodies ail and wane with lifeless frailty, because we stuff our bellies full with foods unhealthy, and beneath the watchful eyes of camera spies, the new Cold War flares up on how to feed the world. When loving families break apart and rip asunder, burdened down because their homes and houses crumble through global warming or the crazy banking crash and oily lies by earthquakes fracked and gashed. When here on earth all creatures suffer only anguish, the price of the old path of progress is too high. Then time has come for everything to be extinguished, that without heart nor foresight shapes our future days. When we completely suction off the giant's breath, because we simply will no longer follow lies, our chance is total non-compliance with their scheming to pull for good the grounds from under them away. We can achieve with grit and courage to survive what David did when he prevailed against Goliath. Thanks very much.
Super stuff. Thank you, Sue. And that brings us to our final reader for tonight, Massimo Lavelle. You there, Massimo?
Yes. I think Margaret also wanted to go. Am I right?
Oh, I thought, Margaret, did you not read? I have a tick next to your name. How did that happen? Oh my God. Massimo, let's let Margaret read and we'll come back to you. Is that okay?
Good. All right.
All right, super.
Sure, Massimo, is that okay?
My apologies, Margaret.
Not at all. And very unusually for me, I have 3 words of Irish in this poem. And because I have no facility for Irish, I have no feel for the language, I just don't get it at all. So this is the only one I'll probably ever write with Irish words in it. Also, it's political and it refers to asylum seekers and the method of holding them in Ireland, the direct provision centres, and they have cameras up on all the corridors in those places. And their sole purpose, I would maintain, is holding pens in order to deport them. So it's called Céad Míle Fáilte. In this land of Céad Míle Fáilte, holding pens have been called for, cattle herded to slaughter, sword of Damocles order, cameras charged and recorded, ready to pounce and pronounce. Go back where you came from, Céad Míle Fáilte refrain. Remains rounded up, condemned and deported from this land of Céad Míle Fáilte to another fled from slaughter. Bounced like a football, boomeranged and shanghaied, dropped from the air a parcel of despair by the rulers of Céad Míle Fáilte, who forget that we will not forget bully bureaucrat bile, that we will continue to fight, call an end to deportation flights from this land of Céad Míle Fáilte.
Well done, Margaret.
And for anyone that doesn't know what Céad Míle Fáilte means, it means 100,000 welcomes. It's total hypocrisy from the top-down Irish state.
Thank you, Margaret. It's good that you got a few Irish words in there. You might try and get a few more in, or even could change it to Céad Míle Feck Off, like, or something like that. I don't know. But nice poem. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that brings us to our final reader for tonight, Massimo Lavelle.
Always such a huge honor to be here, and good to see everybody. I thought that I was dead for a while, but the living still see me, so I smile. I leave all my skeletons in a pile, and I resurrect. Every moment's a revival. I'm not dead, I just live in denial. The flesh of a man and the dreams of a child. I may marry my dreams down the aisle, but if I divorce them, I pray there's no trial. I'm not only searching for ecstasy or a life on this earth that is heavenly. All I want is the place I'll forever be, to be a place where this pain cannot enter me. In case there is no great assembly of angels to save me from entropy. All I want is the love from my memory to stay with me for the deep sleep ahead of me. Life is beautiful, that's a sure thing. But God knows I'm tired of hurting. Still something inside me is certain that love is the truth when you pull aside the curtain. See, I am no healer, no shaman, but one thing I know that we all have in common. Find peace in yourself and the world begins calming. If in the end, yours is the world we are all in. A wisdom not ancient, but timeless, headless ahead of all guidance, brainless, but mindful, not mindless, bodiless, but not heartless or spineless, earless, but hears through the vibrance, free from an iris, but seeing, not eyeless, tongueless, but cries through the silence, finding in lowness the highest of highest. See, I am a student of levity, but also a servant of gravity. Though I give a gift that is heavenly, sometimes it's sung as a tragedy. Of life, I am far from a master. Were I to play God, it would be a disaster. That's why I'm no prophet, no preacher, no pastor. I'm just a poet who likes internal rhyme schemes and deep chatter. I heard the stars have a pulse, kind of like the heartbeat in us. I heard we are made of their dust. Why, for a human to shine is a must. Starlight, starlight, catch me all starry-eyed on a starry night. Stars are signs we might be all right, if seeing deep space without stars is a sorry sight. I thought I was a star that had fallen, or maybe a star that's still falling, or not yet a star, rising, evolving, seeking that place where all light finds belonging. Because with great heights come great elevations, like great gifts bear great expectations. Great sorrows bear great educations, but without love, these are fake revelations. Because I thought that I was dead for a while, but I was just living in denial. The living still see me, so I smile. In your eyes is my revival. Thank you so much. Peace, peace.
Superb, superb stuff as always. Thank you, Massimo, for ending off our night with that. You know, in Irish, the word for poet is filla. Filla means poet, you know. So when I think of you now, I'm going to think the filla from Philly, you know. Massimo's over in Philadelphia. The filla from Philly. That's what I'm going to think of you from now on. So thank you so much for that. Agus gur maithagibh go léir as trathnóna iontach ar fad go háirithe lenar níana Colm agus Colette. Thank you so much to everyone for a fantastic night, especially to our guests Colm and Colette for their superb readings. Thank you very much for them. We're going to be back on Friday night with Culture Night. It's going to be our last virtual event. After that, we're going to be back in the Long Valley with hybrid events, so you can still take part over Zoom, which is fantastic. And you'll be able to look into the live Long Valley and alternate with in-person poets and other virtual poets. We're looking forward to that. So our final virtual event is this coming Friday night for Culture Night. So for those of you not reading, with Catherine Ronan et al. In Bandon for the live event that's happening there. Please come and join us again. We'd love to see you. For our spoken word guests, Elizabeth McGowan from Belfast and Jenny Lindsay from Scotland. Promises to be a fantastic night. So I'm now going to go over and end the live stream part, which is sending out to Facebook and to YouTube. And thank you to everyone online for watching us too. And then we can sit back and have our fourth part of Avail, our mains chill out session, and a drink or two and a chat. So thank you very much, everyone.
Lovely to see. How's it going?